And what was it? Group 3. 13. Group 13, right? All right, so let's the other so besides the last couple presentations that we ran over on yesterday, the other topic for today is to clearly define the deliverable for the group project. Is that good? Perfect. So we're going to do the last couple presentations and then clearly define the deliverable that's going to be due sometime that last week of the term. We can debate that as we get to that step. So group 13, you guys, does one of you want to come up to present since you have you get the opportunity to come up and present, stand in front of the class. Perfect. All right. This mic should pick you up as long as you're not too far away from it, the one on the table.
Okay. All right. So we are doing manufacturing of windshield wipers, and I wanted to go over the process a little bit because we had considered doing electromechanical assemblies, but that is a really big field, so we narrowed it down to windshield wipers. So the process of making windshield wipers involves putting a bunch of rubber, they're like pellets, grains, into a big vat, and then they are melted into a plastic that they can then, or a rubber that they can then work with. That rubber goes through a few processes, including heat treating, spraying the rubber so that it is dyed and it has anti-corrosive properties. That rubber is extruded. It's ran through a bunch of conveyor machines, and then it is sliced up, and then it is the metal parts of it are stamped out from sheet metal, and then those are also treated with anti-corrosive spray. And then afterwards they have to be assembled, which we have not fully decided if we want to go the assembly machine route or if we want to have people do the manual assembling. It can add a factor of 100,000 to get an assembly machine, so that part's still up in the air. So the costs that we came up with, we went on used equipment websites, Alibaba for the most part, and then these are the prices we were able to estimate. So the rubber mixer would be about 5,000, and then the extruder 25,000. You guys can read these. We're gonna have multiple vats for the treatment that has to be done to the rubber, and then we also added at the end an estimated 20,000 because it's hard to know until we actually get into the facility and figure out how much we're actually going to have to be using conveyor belts. I think that's like the biggest factor that we weren't too certain about. So we estimated to be about 135,000 for the machinery, not including materials and having an office. Clearly. Yeah.
What did they miss? Say again. So there may be some costs just to have the license to do business and things. Any? Oh, look at that. So, next slide. What did you think? All right, so you missed the supplies, tooling, software, certifications. I'm guessing, and so I don't know this, but I'm guessing with that rubber processing, you might have some EPA regulations that you have to meet, because there'd be the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds that get released when you heat that up and stuff. There may be some emissions requirements. I don't know, but it's something I would look into. Certainly, if I was the bank you were asking, I would want you to know and be able to tell me whether or not there was EPA issues that were involved. Anything else that somebody thinks they should have covered, thought about? If you asked me before you put your numbers up there, I would have guessed it would cost a lot more money to get machines that you could use to make windshield wipers. So but I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just say like my guess because I've never thought it through before. But those
Yeah,
were
the assembly,
mostly used equipment.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the assembly, not including shipping, whatever that
Yeah.
would be.
So
which I
there'd be
imagine-
some added cost. But even if you doubled that, I would have thought it would cost more. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
interesting.
the assembly machine that it was difficult to estimate because whoever makes the machines custom makes them for whatever assemblies you're going to be making, and it's hard to figure out. What
And so the stampings, right? You got the price for the stamping machine?
I believe so.
Yeah. So the stamping will require tooling also. So who's the tooling manufacturer? Which group was it? You said you were going to do injection mold tooling. You could also do stamping dies. You'd have the same technology. So you might want to hook up with them to make your dies. Cool. All right, thank you. What's the next group that's going to go? Go ahead. And you should be here in which group number? 9. Nope, I don't know. Maybe I'll refresh. You said you were gonna just do it. There's a group 9 now. Who's gonna present? All right. Just talk somewhere close to the microphone. It should pick you up.
Okay, so
Oh yeah, don't use the arrow key stuff.
So last time we went over our location, like the economical reasons for picking Maine, like its location is, and then why ventilators. But what we added was the machine costs. So it probably will be a little more expensive as we keep adding things, but we have a long list of like lathes, mills, different tooling because we're planning on making just whatever part is necessary for a ventilator. So like it could be the hose, it could be the frame, it could be electronics. And then we picked a location. We preferably wanted to pick somewhere cheap. I'm not even speaking the mic. We wanted to pick somewhere cheap, under $300,000. We didn't want to get a $1 million building because presumably we're just starting out. And what we don't have on here included is licensing, which I'm working on right now. Basically, what it'll come down to is there's federal licensing for...
Yeah, it'll be similar to the medical products.
There's a lot of that, but for Maine, we might be able to avoid some of the state certifications we would need because if we aren't the distributor, then we could manufacture and then they would license contract out to us. And so we wouldn't really have to have a license. They would have a license for shipping because most of the licenses are for distribution of medical products.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay. What'd they miss? Yeah, so you go back to that slide.
Oh, I sort of just...
So you got, I guess you've got over here, you've got lathe tool holders and end mills and stuff like that, but you don't estimate how many you're going to need.
Oh, yeah.
So, but presumably that's in that $124,000 number. So that's 2 machine tools and some tooling and an air compressor.
Yeah.
And tooling as needed, right? So I think, and you can go ahead and sit down, unless you want to stay up here. But I think one of the things that you've missed there is, so in a ventilator, I like the premise, but in a ventilator, there's a lot of different shaped components, right? And I don't think you'll be manufacturing the hose, right? Unless you want to become a tubing manufacturer, right? A plastic tubing manufacturer. So you're going to be sourcing some of those parts. And I think it would be beyond the scope of this class to figure out the design of all the parts and how you would make them. But I think, and there was a ventilator that was designed here at WPI during COVID. that did go into production and manufacturing. You might be able to find some documentation on that design just by searching old news articles. If you go to the WPI webpage, I'm sure it's in all the press release stuff. Well, so I think you should pick kind of a specific part. I actually like the idea of assembling the whole thing, but having some idea of the components that you're going to buy compared to the components that you're going to make and what that cost breakdown is, I think would certainly be important for you if you were really starting this business. There's definitely some components that would get machined, and there's some components that would get just assembled, purchased and assembled. So I would look at that a little bit more. And I think so. A few of the groups have had some special instructions, right? I think for your group, you might rely on the medical device group and the information that they developed about the licensing required, because I think it's going to be similar. It's a durable medical good. But figure out what mix of product would be outsourced and what you would make in-house. And it doesn't have to be down to all the nitty-gritty details because you don't actually have to build a ventilator. Just give us some ideas of the kind of things. Because you're probably not going to make the circuit boards, right? You're going to buy the circuit boards. So that kind of thing. Anything else from the group, from the class? Okay, what group's next? There's one more group, right? Which number? 7. Lucky number 7. Are you ready?
All right, so these are our slides from last week. And then this is kind of where we get into some machinery. So to start up, we started with 2 mills. These are about $50,000 each. We tried to find them used. And then since we're manufacturing parts for the locomotive industry, we decided to kind of get one big rig. That way we can fit in some larger size parts if we're working on larger parts. So that was pretty expensive. An air compressor to run things, a welder, shipping costs, a forklift to move around heavy parts. Yeah, this you guys can read, I'm sure. Tooling costs, this is not everything. This is kind of just what we were thinking of as we were going through it. We have some measuring devices as well. And already we're kind of up towards like 350,000. This is our target audience. We're looking at pretty much the entire train industry. We just want to service as many trains as possible.
What's the scale of your trains again?
Well, not that to imply small, but we were thinking like large size freight trains, passenger trains.
Okay.
And then licensing, we just need to create an LLC. There's no big licensing as far as making parts for a locomotive industry. So that wasn't too big. And then we also have a business model that kind of just goes through what I was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're talking about building locomotives,
Not
or components for
building
locomotives, or
building
the
components for locomotives.
components for locomotives. Okay.
Yeah. So if something's broken, fix it.
Okay. What did they miss? What do they need to add? He's got something. What do you got? Well, so the Chinese train cars coming to the U.S., that's a company that's in building them here, importing them, and they're selling them to the government. But it is a private venture. I think you're good. So yeah, so it's out in Springfield. There's a big thing about there's a Chinese company that's manufacturing train cars in Springfield. Yep. Yeah. but I think 100% making components to do repair, because they need spare parts, they need all those things. Um, a lot of those would be castings that get finished machined, and so you might be just doing the job shop type finished machining on the castings that the manufacturer of the locomotive or of the train car is doing. The reason I asked if you were making train cars or locomotives or if you were making parts is so you've all heard of Pullman, the Pullman company, maybe. If you've ridden on a train, you've ridden in a Pullman car, for example. And so that company is actually started in Worcester and out, what's that, the north part of Worcester? Yeah, near Greendale. They had the original building is still there. It's the Pullman building. It's about 130 square feet of space, and they made so your space that you picked was probably smaller than 130,000 square feet. Yeah, and so they moved out of there because it was too small. So if you're actually making train cars, you need a lot of volume of space. Yeah, I suppose. But anyway, so yeah. All right, so let's go. Is there another group that needs to go? Or is that it? One more group? Which group number? 6. Group 6. Where are we? Over here. Group 6. All right. Perfect.
Okay, so how do I go from slide to slide? Do I just like
You can click the arrows, or you can scroll them.
Okay.
Scroll wheel.
So this is group 6. Of course, based on the image here, we're going for the aerospace industry. Just to recap from the previous time we were here, it's a facility, and we have our roles, our location, our logistics. We just added requirements and certifications. So the FAA outlines minimum support loads. It does not outline minimum and maximum dimensions of airplane seats. And certifications are that airplane seats are not technically certified, but they do need to pass extreme crash safety tests. So as you see, this guy is in the brace position here. He's like when the flight attendant says there's something wrong with the plane, they have to put him go in this
It's got to be
position.
an extra legroom seat, huh?
Yeah, I know. Most planes aren't like that, honestly. And there's just a little website about it. So here's some of the machines we're going to be using. We're going to be using milling. We're going to be using HAAS VF-2SSYT. So this is going to be the milling machine here. This is for turning, so it's going to be the used HAAS ST10 CNC lathe machine. So down here. So what the purpose of these machines is, this one's going to be drilling holes in the frame of the chair, and it's going to be forming the shape of the seat frame itself. This one is going to be for the hinges that go into the holes. So the machining, here's some parts to start. So shell cutters, end mills, and 2 air compressors with price listings here. And yeah, any questions? And
Questions? What did they miss? All right. So, yeah, perfect. So there was a lot of the groups. Some of the groups had. You can go ahead and sit down. Some of the groups had stuff about operating the office and office supplies and desk furniture and stuff like that. Where's my favorite group that was going to steal everything? Perfect. Right. And so those are all definitely considerations, right? You have the space, you move into the space. Who was the person who made the comment about paying for the shipping of the used machine tools and bringing them in? Was that we talked about that yesterday, right? Yeah. So it's not just bringing in the machine tools. So if we're moving into a new space that didn't used to be full of the exact same machine tools that we have, then we're also going to have to bring in power to those. So we moved a machine shop back in 2016 and there were 15 different machines, different levels of sophistication of those machines. Some of them were like small little hand tools that plug into the wall. Some of them were big lathes that need 480 volts, 3-phase power. So moving the machines from one building to another cost about $6,000. So the move of the 15 machine tools, it happened in a day. It actually happened the day after Christmas, this December 26th, in an ice storm. So the move part wasn't so bad. It cost $27,000 to hook up the power. So it's not just, and so there's some other startup costs that you'll see when you're doing something like this. You're moving the facility into a new facility, all those things, and it wasn't the purpose of what we've done so far for you all to have figured that out in advance, right? And the real reason for the bi-weekly progress reports, they were bi-weekly, right? That worked out by accident. Was that if I told you have a group project and that the group project is due the last week of the term, and that for the end of the group project, you're going to have to give me this much information, when would you start working on it? The last week of the term, right? And so the reason for those progress reports was so that you're interacting with your group and that you're thinking about the project throughout the term. So you're building up answers in. Most of the groups for today's presentation just added new slides to the slides that they used for the previous presentation. That was really good technique. And there was no, and the instructions about it were purposely vague for two reasons. The first reason is that I have never done this assignment this way before, and I had no idea what I was doing when I assigned it. I wanted to see what would happen if I gave you some vague instructions so that I could maybe figure out the best way to do it. Good question? Yeah. Yeah. So the end product, the thing that's going to be due the last week of the term, now that we're getting close, is I want, I put the, so I have like a blank PowerPoint slide that I could open up and start typing in, and then it would be in the PowerPoint slide. I really hate doing that. So I'm going to write on the board, but somebody has to remind me to take pictures of what I write on the board to paste into the PowerPoint slide before we leave the room. Okay? And you're nodding, so it's your job. Room control. Screen up. The lights are on. Okay. Because, I don't know. I have more energy, more life in me when I have chalk or a whiteboard marker in my hand. And I love to end the day covered with chalk dust. It sort of makes me feel professorial. Okay. So the end product, the thing that I want, let me turn off the screen share too. The thing that I want at the end here is a proposal from your group to get the money that you would need to start your business. And so in order to get the money that you would need to start your business, you'd have to have some idea how much money it's going to cost, right? And so that's what we've done for the last couple of weeks is we've figured out sort of the location costs. We figured out the tools and tooling cost to get started. And so I want a proposal, and I want it two different things. I've tried to do these group presentations throughout the term before, and this class did it better than any other class has done it. Maybe it's because I gave the fewest instructions and you guys had to figure it out on your own. And since you didn't know what I was looking for, you did extra. If you thought you knew what I was looking for, you would have done the bare minimum. I don't know if that's true or not. So in that last week, we've got a week on the schedule where we said we're going to do presentations. So we will do presentations that day, and it'll be like the elevator pitch. It'll be the thing you say to somebody as you're giving them your 4-page proposal. Yeah, go ahead. No, we're not changing the angle of attack on the airplane. The elevator pitch is, say you get into the elevator with the really rich guy that's got the money you want. You get into the elevator, and now you have 30 seconds to tell them why they should give you the money before both of you step off the elevator on different floors. That's the elevator pitch that I'm talking about. We'll do some math and we'll figure out actually how long, because that was without guidance. Some of the groups had long presentations, some of the groups had short presentations, right? So we'll clearly define that as we go here. But first off, a proposal, and we'll call it a 4-page business plan. And it's a manufacturing course. So the technical detail stuff should be about the manufacturing part of your process to convince the person who gets the proposal that you can do the manufacturing, right? So not a marketing analysis, a made up marketing analysis of why it's good to sell this stuff. We're going to assume that there's a market for the thing that you've decided to make. And so what I want you to do now is to convince me that you know how to make the thing you want to make, and you know how much the equipment would cost, so that I could judge whether or not I should give you the money to buy the equipment to go start the thing. Is that fair? So in a real business plan, you should really define the market in detail, and they should assume you know how to make the stuff. We're looking at prove to me you understand the manufacturing part of it, because of the manufacturing class. Okay. And I really like the fact that we've got different processes, right? We've got plastic injection molding somebody. We've got people doing extrusion of rubber. We got people doing job shops. We got people doing bending and stuff like that. So like the steering wheel group, right? Steering wheel group. So make sure you can explain your manufacturing process. All right, so 4-page business plan. So what goes into it? First, who and why those people are qualified to do the thing. So our experience. This is going to be like, we're WPI college students and we just took a class, therefore we're smart, right? I don't know, you could expand on that. But don't. So it should have like who and why we can do this. So who and why. What's the need that you're filling? And this is where in a normal business plan, you'd put in a bunch of market research and you'd talk about why it's important to do that. But what's the problem that exists that you're solving? So the tool making group, the tool making group is this area where we want to go, has a lot of injection molding facilities. They need access to quality, quick turnaround injection molding dies, right? And so that's why we're going to build this business to make quality, high, quick turnaround injection molding dies. Hey, I heard a kid last night. I was at an event with my daughter, and there was a kid talking. He was, I don't know, 15 years old, and he was doing this business plan thing. And his business was a mobile barbershop. So there'd be an app, and you'd say, hey, come to my house and cut my hair. And then he'd drive up with his mobile barbershop and cut your hair. Is that a product? Would people do that? I mean, my daughter DoorDashes hair dye all the time. So somebody to come apply the hair dye, I think she would totally DoorDash that. Anyway, side project. Who and why? And so what's the problem? People need their hair cut. How am I solving it? So what's the problem? People need their hair cut. How am I solving it? Mobile barbershop, right? So problem, solution. And in this solution part of it is where I want you to talk about how you're going to, what the process is. Describe the process of your manufacturing process that's going to do the things, and demonstrate that you understand the manufacturing process. And so there's a couple that are doing sort of job shop kind of work, making parts for other people. So your process should be the CNC machining process that you talk about. In order for somebody to actually give you money to do it, you're going to have to tell them your marketing process and how you're going to bring in the orders and stuff like that. But for this thing, talk about the manufacturing process and describe that you understand how that works and how the fixturing and setup works, why you've chosen this machine tool and the size of it and stuff like that. Just to show that you understand that part of it. This is actually really cool for me because there's so many different groups doing different things. It won't be boring report after boring report. So who's ever done a lab report for a lab experiment? And did all of the groups that did the lab experiment do the exact same instructions? Have you ever thought about what it's like to grade those? It is depressing. When the one time I did it one time, it was the first semester that I was teaching. And I remember in my pajamas on Sunday morning at the kitchen table, trying to go through these stupid, and you know what? Some of them were bad. Some of them were bad. And I came across one and I said, this isn't just bad. It's exactly like that other bad one I just looked at. And I shuffle over and they didn't even change the font. Word for word, the same report. Oops. So don't do that either. So at least there's no risk of that because no two groups have exactly the same report. Okay, so 4-page business plan. Who we are, why we are suited to do this. What's the problem we're solving? What's the solution we're going to apply? This is the part where you're going to put the most detail because this is the thing that explains that you understand the manufacturing process. Okay, then how much is it going to cost? How much cost? Right. So how much money do you need? In past terms, I've had people project how long it will take to pay that money back. I'm going to skip that this term because again, this is a manufacturing class. It's not a business class. It's not a finance class. But how much it's going to cost and why it's going to cost that much. Does that make sense? And so maximum 4 pages. Don't go past 4 pages. Don't use a giant font in order to fill up 4 pages if you only have 2.5 pages, because that's lame and everybody knows that trick. Like make the margins a little bit skinnier, right? Make the font, 1.6 spacing instead of 1.5 spacing on the lines. Yeah, everybody knows those tricks. You don't need to do that. I think for me, with a 4-page limit, it's usually hard to keep it under the 4 pages. It's easier to write a long thing with a bunch of bullshit in it. It's hard to write something short and concise. Something readable, not 8, not 14. Yeah. A breakdown. Yeah. But, not a spreadsheet, right? So, CNC machines, we're going to buy used CNC machines. They're going to be this cost, or we're going to buy new CNC machines. We're going to get this cost. There was a group that wanted to buy new CNC machines because they wanted them to be under warranty. I remember that, right? Which group was that? New CNC machines going to be under warranty. There's not going to be any bullshit of them breaking halfway through the operation. So, and the groups that are getting used compressors, I applaud you for getting used compressors. But when the compressor fails, all of the machine tools stop spinning. They all stop. I was at a trade show once. It was out in Springfield, and so you've got Haas was there, and Haas probably spent a couple $1 million bringing machine tools and setting them up for this demonstration. Right, this is not a light expense. And then you got the other big manufacturers, and they're all lined up in a row in this giant conference hall, and the air compressor failed that was serving all those machine tools, and it was really amazing because it sort of the pressure drops as you get farther away from the compressor. So people closer to the compressor lose that air pressure later than the people further away from it. That makes sense? Yeah, so you can just watch down the hallway, red light, red light, red light, red light, red light. And the Haas sales kid that I was standing next to, he saw it coming. He knew what it was, and he changed all the timeout settings on all the machines that he could get to so that the red light wouldn't come on for like 12 minutes. So all the other booths at the trade show had red lights flashing on their machines. Red's bad at the trade show. You want green flashing on the machine. And so all the Haas machines still had green lights flashing because this kid saw it coming, and he's like, I gotta go change those settings quick. He just changed the timeout for the alarm. All right, so this is clear. What we're doing, no more than 4 pages. Who you are, why you're well suited to this. You could make something up for that, or you could tell the truth. It doesn't really matter to me. That part of it can be fiction. If you're doing it for real, use as little creative fiction as possible because people could check that out. But for the purpose of this, I suppose a little creative fiction could be entertaining for the grader. Just saying. But really this problem and the solution, and this is the meat of it, this is explaining that you understand the manufacturing process that you've decided to use. All right, is that good? All right, so let's talk about the last presentation then. Because I have really enjoyed the presentations. Some more than others. But I have really enjoyed the presentations. So how many groups are there? 13. How many times does 13 go into 40? 40. Yeah, but we're engineers, so we can round, right? Is it 5? What's the number? It's not 5? I didn't think it was 5. 3 minutes, right? So if each group gets 3 minutes, plan to talk for no more than 2 minutes. That gives us 30 seconds for questions and 30 seconds to switch groups. What day of the week is that scheduled for? Is it Wednesday? Yeah, that classroom sucks. Let's do it on a day we're in this room. We'll do it on the Tuesday before. Is that okay? We'll do it on the Tuesday before so we can do it in this room. And that way, when it's your turn to present, you just run down here, do the presentation. You'll be standing in front of everybody. And then you can go sit down in your seat. We'll advance to the next slide. I think that'll work way faster than trying to do it in that other classroom. And yeah. I think it's not that far. We could run. But that's fine. Yes. Yeah, so a couple, I mean, it's two, 3 slides max for 2 minutes, right? Yeah. In addition to the slides. Yeah. So we'll do the presentation. And if you've got pictures in your business plan, those pictures might be the ones that go in the slides. Yeah. And no more than 4 pages. 2.5 pages is fine. Right? Unless there's no content. Yes. So I was advising an IQP, and the project was actually pretty good. And the kids doing the IQP were pretty good, but lazy D term comes around, and so they didn't finish their IQP and D term. And they said that they wanted to register for it in the summer. And I said, okay, but you could just wait until A term and just register for a sixth, and then it would probably be free. You wouldn't have to pay extra. And they said, no, we want to finish it in the summer. I said, okay. Turns out that was good for me. I get paid $56 for advising an IQP in the summer. I didn't know that was going to happen. But it was really weird when my paycheck came and it was the wrong number by $56. But the group never scheduled any appointments with me, never had a meeting with me. And just before the end of the term, I got a frantic email from one of them that says, we submitted our IQP. Can you log in and approve it? And so I logged in because I was curious. I said, wow, they didn't need any advising. Okay. I still got my $56. It was 9 pages long. So I didn't even respond to the email. I waited till they scheduled the meeting in A term. And then they actually did write a good paper. It's not that they didn't do good work, is that they were too damn lazy to write the paper. And then they realized that they paid for those credits, but they weren't going to get any value out of them if they didn't submit something. Yeah, so I think that's your answer on a half page. Just like half page compared to 4 pages, probably not enough. 9 pages compared to IQP, probably not enough. So thanks for that question, because I get to tell a fun story. And yeah, 9 pages, not enough for your IQP. I mean, I would say that page count shouldn't matter, but not possible to put enough content in 9 pages. How's that? What else? Anything? All right. What's your job? I'm pointing at you. What? Okay, but we should add the stuff about the presentation, right? 2-minute presentation. All right. And I could clip that out of the video later, but I'll forget. So let's just take a picture of it. The light is horrible. There's a shadow right there. It's as high as it goes. What they should do is they should put some LED strips right on the bottom of these things, and when they go up, they should turn on. Eraser. Eraser. Okay.